Krista Rowland is the Western Regional Deputy Director for the Coalition for Community Schools at the Institute for Educational Leadership. And she has been supporting Washoe County School District and also some folks in the state with technical assistance on community schools. So we are full service community schools. So we're just very excited to have Krista here, and I will turn the time over to her.
Thank you, Delisa. It's an honor to be here. I'm so excited to speak at this conference, and I'm impressed that educators and professionals from Nevada are joining a conference on a Saturday. Thank you so much for giving your time to participate today. And Sarah, I don't know where you are, but your background just looks beautiful, like blue, lovely skies. It looks hot and amazing. I'm based out of Boise, Idaho, which is typically pretty nice weather, probably somewhat similar to yours, but today we have this weird day that's suddenly about 50 degrees. So we're all freezing because we're used to the 80-degree weather we've been having the last few weeks here. So, well, welcome and thanks so much for joining today. I am gonna do my screen share here and we'll get things kicked off. We are going to take some time in a few moments to do some introductions and kind of dive into me getting to know you as well. But before we do that, I'd like to open this session with kind of an exercise. So for a moment, I'd like you to, just kind of clear your head, take a moment, take a deep breath as we start this. I know you probably have had a pretty busy day and a lot of content coming at you. I want you to visualize something with me for a moment. So feel free to close your eyes if you'd like. I want you to use your imagination and imagine with me that you're in a concert hall and you're watching an orchestra play music on a stage. This orchestra has many very talented musicians. They all hold their own expertise and are all very good at what they do. But now imagine for a moment with me that you don't see a conductor in the middle of the stage there. There's just musicians and no one holding a baton or standing in the middle of the stage to kind of help. They have not agreed which music they're going to play. They don't have any music, in fact, no sheet music in front of them. And I'd like for a moment you to tell me what you hear. Feel free to pop that in the chat. What do you hear here in this orchestra where there is no conductor, lots of musicians playing music, but no one playing the same thing together? Drop that in the chat for me. Noise. Thank you, Dr. Nancy. Chaos. Thank you, Patricia. Absolutely. So messiness. Thank you, Sarah. Awesome. Yeah. So what we have here is like an example of some really talented folks who've come together to share their expertise, but they're not doing this in a coordinated way. So we hear a lot of beautiful parts, but when they come together and play, it's a pretty confusing, chaotic, messy whole, as you guys said. So this to me is similar to the siloed efforts that sometimes happen in schools. And I'm speaking from my former experience of being a music educator. I taught in different schools across Boise for 8 years. I probably was at least 6 different schools during that time. And what I noticed was a lot of folks coming into the building, whether they were, after school providers, whether they were educators already working in the building or administrators, whether they were maybe extended learning time program offers or someone coming in to provide health services, whatever it may be. A lot of folks providing some really wonderful expertise and really passionate about supporting students and supporting families. But what I've noticed is that a lot of times those are very siloed efforts. So they're often happening in isolation, each person coming in or each person being in the building, kind of working on different goals or having a different strategy that they're working on. And this is similar in my mind to this analogy of how these musicians in this orchestra are playing different music. So now imagine for me that this orchestra has a conductor. And they've agreed to play the same music. They're playing the Beethoven Fifth Symphony, the third movement. They are very specific in what they're playing. And they all have sheet music that they're referring to. So listen to the way this orchestra now is working towards a common goal as a team. Listen to the way that the tuba complements the flute and the bass player is playing along with the violin, but not overpowering. This is an orchestra coming together to create a beautiful collective whole. This music feels your ear, it moves your soul. It has much more impact when it's coordinated and in collaboration. That's similar to what happens when we use the framework of the community school strategy in a school with Fidelity. The community school director, or you might call them a manager or a coordinator, they have lots of different names, acts as sort of a conductor, bringing together the expertise and wisdom of educators, of community partners, of family members, of students, and helps them all work towards common goals. And sometimes they may recognize that the music or there's a need for, let's say, a French horn player. And so they go out into the community and they find someone who has expertise in playing the French horn. They invite them to sit into that orchestra. All of these different orchestras are coming together. They're choosing common goals and they're each using their individual wisdom and their individual expertise to help the larger collective achieve the goal. This is the same as when we use that community school, because we're having these folks, we're having educators, administrators, out of school time providers, mental health providers, folks who each have their individual expertise in this orchestra. But we're not forgetting that parents also have a pivotal role to play in schools, and they should be our partners. They should be on the stage with us. They should be helping make decisions and helping make this music. These partners no longer operate in silos. They're using their wisdom, their lived experience, and their expertise as contributors to achieving a bigger collective goal together. This is the power of using a community school strategy within a school. So I'm going to play you a short video here about community schools. And please let me know if you don't have any sound.
What makes a school a great school? Caring for the whole child, expanding the horizons of learning, building relationships with families, working together to realize a shared vision. This is the school every student needs. This is a community school. Community schools are public schools that partner with stakeholders to create the conditions students need to thrive. Community schools can be found across the United States, and their numbers are growing fast. But what exactly makes a school a community school? They integrate student supports. Clinics, counselors, and other services ensure each and every student is ready to learn. They expand and enrich learning. Extended school days, summer programs, and real-world experiences help students reach their full potential. They engage families and communities. Partnering with residents to identify and meet community needs makes everyone feel safe, welcome, and involved in school. They lead in collaboration. Inclusive decision-making and peer learning builds trust among students, educators, families, and communities. When a school stands on these 4 pillars, it's a community school. Research supports this 4-pillar approach, but there's no one-size-fits-all model. Every community school is different because each community is different. Figuring out what it looks like in your community starts by getting actual community members involved. That's the full-time job of community school coordinators. They're the human bridge connecting all the partners and stakeholders that make community schools possible. So that's what makes a school a community school. Now, how do you pay for it? Startup costs like hiring a full-time coordinator can be raised from foundations or state and local governments. Tapping into existing funding and partnering with local businesses can bring in service providers. Sharing resources and staff with partners can help everyone do more. And as a community school becomes more established, leaders can advocate for budgets that sustain their impact and new funding to expand it. Every community school is different. What will yours be like? Get started at communityschools.futureforlearning.org.
Okay, so So that's just a little teaser about what community schools are. We're going to dive in really hard here in just a minute, and I will definitely get to all the questions I'm sure that you have about community schools. But before we do that, I'd like to do a little polling of you folks so I can get to know you just a little bit better. So if you would either use your computer that you're on, or maybe the device you're on, or if you have a device nearby, like a phone, you can use that. If you would go to menti.com, open your browser, go to menti.com and type in the code 57829012. The other option is you can use this QR code here and take a picture of that with your device, your phone, your tablet, and that should take you to this website called Menti. So I dropped that in the chat for folks. And there is a question there for you. And I'd like to know a little bit about who's in the room today.
Hey, can you put the link on the the QR code on the screen again, please?
Just 1 second here. Here you go, QR code. You can also go to menti.com in your browser, 57829012. This allows me a moment here to get to know you guys a little bit better.
The QR code isn't showing.
Yeah,
No,
can you
it's
show
not.
it again
No.
real quick?
Interesting. Okay. Oh, yeah, it's not because I didn't share my screen. There we go. I got this. I remember how to do this on a Saturday. Let's see here. There we go. QR code. Okay, I'm going to stop my share here for a minute. I'd love to see your faces too today. If you're comfortable putting yourself on camera, if you're not, that's totally okay. I get it. Okay.
I've uploaded it to the chat as well. If you want to
Hey,
open it,
thank
just
you.
scan it there.
Thanks, Matthew. All right, so who's in the room today? I'm seeing kind of a combination. Looks like mostly teachers in the room. Thanks for joining us today. Hope you're getting the professional development credit for the day. That's important. School administrator, district administrator, nonprofit person, 2 government professionals. So mostly teachers thus far. And I'm going to wait just for another couple responses to come in because it seems like we don't have everyone yet. Okay. Mostly teachers in the room today. Thank you, guys.
Krista, we can't see the results. I wasn't sure if you wanted to share those or.
I was just trying to look at people's faces for a moment here.
Yeah.
My presentation's pretty speaking heavy, so I love to be able to look at you for a minute. Okay, awesome. I'm going to turn it to the next one here. Okay, next question for us all is what is your level of familiarity with community schools? Would you say you're a beginner, you don't know very much about this? Would you say you're intermediate, you've heard of it before, you're kind of familiar with it, don't necessarily know a ton about it though? Or would you say that you're advanced, you have a lot of knowledge about this? All right, I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen again. Okay, seeing a mixture of mostly beginner and intermediate. That's awesome. Glad to hear some folks have some base knowledge about community schools. Hopefully I can share something helpful today still. And I am seeing some questions come in the chat. I will definitely get to those. Okay. And last question for this spot anyway. What do you hope to learn today? This is just kind of open-ended here. You can put a little blurb of text. Tell me what you hope to learn from this session today. Okay, here we get some responses. How to organize valuable resources for parents. Resources. Learn more ideas, techniques about family engagement and outreach. How to engage parents to use resources. Expanded perspective of best practices. Awesome. Yeah, for today's presentation, I'll kind of be doing most of the basics, but I'm going to share some resources with you, and I hope that you'll reach out if you want to dive deeper too. I'm happy to support that. More intentional and connecting to community resources. All right, awesome. Thank you guys. Okay, that's helpful. That gives me just a little bit of an idea of where folks are at with this and what slides to spend a lot of time on. So let me jump back into this presentation. If during today you have questions, feel free to drop them in the chat box. And I'm hoping at the end we have some time to dive into questions. You're also welcome to take yourself off mute if you are comfortable with that and ask too. Absolutely can do that. Okay. All right, so first of all, I kind of jumped right in, didn't tell you a lot about me or my organization. So as Delisa mentioned, I'm with the Institute for Educational Leadership. I'm actually, I'm with the Coalition for Community Schools, which is housed at the Institute for Educational Leadership. And we facilitate the Coalition for Community Schools. And we think of that as really anyone nationwide that is working on community schools. We're really the backbone staff to support this effort, but we work to prepare, support, and mobilize those leaders that are helping to support community schools nationwide. Community schools are a movement. I know there was a little map that was shown in that video, but I wanted to show you a more updated map, although this isn't even complete, to show you where community schools currently exist. You can see they're pretty much represented in every state in the nation at this point. I wasn't able to fit Hawaii, Alaska, and some of the territories in there, but they do exist in Hawaii, Alaska, Puerto Rico. And we are seeing them sometimes outside the states as well. And I noticed in that video, Las Vegas wasn't represented. So need to give a shout out to Las Vegas, as Las Vegas School District does have community schools. And those are called the reinvent schools. I'm not going to talk a lot about that today because I am not the expert on those schools. I know that a lot of you probably know the folks that run the reinvent system in Las Vegas, but that is a system of community schools within Las Vegas. And I think there's about 14 or so, but if anyone has more updated information, feel free to drop that in the chat. I hope that if today's conversation kind of sparks your interest in community schools, that you would reach out to connect to reinvent schools and kind of learn from them, because there's a system within your state already to begin learning from. So just to reiterate kind of the definition, this is my definition of community school strategy, and I think everyone kind of has their own different ones. It's really about coordinating relationships and resources through local schools in order to increase access to opportunities and accelerate student success. It engages parent, student, educator, and community voices in addressing shared community challenges. It's hyper-local decision-making that is responsive to the unique needs of each community. As you saw in the video, community school strategy has been, there's been a lot of research on it over the past. It's been around really intentionally, probably since the 1990s, although it has existed in various forms before that. There's been a lot of research done on this, and over the years, a lot of those research reports were actually compiled to figure out what makes the most high quality community schools, and it stands on these 4 pillars. One thing I do want to mention before I give you an overview of these 4 pillars, though, is that really the 4 pillars were the research, what the research informed at the time, and this was about 2017, I believe. However, we're starting to update some of these resources to include a few more things, and that's in the gray below. So this is a framework really for thinking about community schools. So first we have active family and community engagement, integrated student supports, expanded learning time and opportunities, and collaborative leadership and practice. And that number 4 one is the most important concept, I think, to take away today. We're trying to create a culture of belonging, safety, and care for students. We're encouraging community connected learning, where what students learn in the classroom is connected into the community, either through projects or, direct folks from the community coming to help teach, or they're reinforcing activities and concepts that they'll use in the community. There's shared decision-making, there's continuous improvement, and equitable resource allocation. So I'm going to dive into each of those today. So the first one is integrated student supports. And this would be things like maybe having a food bank, a food pantry at your school, maybe having someone who's providing mental and physical health services, or even providing physical health services at the school. Another example of this is also communities in schools. While very similar to community schools, we think of communities in schools as the pillar of integrated student supports, of coordinating those resources within a school building that students and families can access. So I'd like to give you a little quick example of this. In my region, there's a school called Sacagawea Community School, and it sits in the town of Caldwell, Idaho. It's a pretty rural area. Although there is still some city to it, it's a pretty rural area that's very isolated. And within this school, when they decided to start becoming a community school, one of the parts of that is conducting a needs assessment to figure out what kind of resources students and families might need. So they talked to families, they talked to students, and they also did a survey of some families. When they did this, they found that mental health services were highly needed. But upon diving in deeper with families and asking them more about what they meant by needed and having that conversation about what kind of services they might need, they found out that the average student who was accessing mental health services in the community, if they were even able to access them, was probably gone from school about 5 hours during a day. And that was because typically the student was either coming late to school, they were accessing mental health services in the morning and therefore coming late, or they were accessing them in the afternoon and therefore leaving school early. I'm sure a lot of this rings true to you teachers in your classrooms and what you see when students do access services in the community. And so they found that that was really impacting student attendance in various classes. So they worked with a mental health provider nearby who was interested in co-locating services at the school. They found a little tiny space, which was actually originally a custodian closet, but big enough to offer services. They adapted that room together to make it more friendly for those counseling sessions. And then that mental behavioral counselor was able to co-locate on site. Now, the school can't directly encourage students to go there because they have to, give fair advantage to different services in the community, but they can let parents know that there is one located on their campus and therefore students can access it. Students sign out real quick at the office, they go around the corner, they access those mental health services, they get back, they sign in, they go back to class, and they've only missed about an hour. The second pillar is expanded and enriched learning time and opportunities. These are, things like out of school time learning. It might be like a 21st century learning program. It might be a boys and girls club that co-locates at the school. It could be a STEM club. It could be additional enrichment activities like music class or like having, a garden at the school. And the idea is that any of these activities that are integrated in the school like this are reinforcing the learning that's happening in the community. So these providers are not just coming to provide their service or not just here, working with students and doing so in a silo. They are working with the school collaboratively to make sure those learning activities are reinforced. I want to share an example with you of a really cool one. This is called the Homework Diner, and some of you might have heard of this because it's gotten a lot of national attention. So let me share my screen here real quick. Okay, got sound, good to go. Let me know if you can't hear. Oh, I can't hear.
We also have 3 black bars, Krista, just so you know.
Yeah, I don't know how to get rid of that, so.
Okay, that's fine.
We may be stuck with it. Sorry, guys.
I'll let you know if I can hear.
About an after
Okay,
School
We're good,
program
we're good.
working so well, it's now being replicated in other cities across New Mexico. It's called the Homework Diner. NBC's Chelsea Clinton first reported on it last year, and tonight she has this update on how a simple recipe is changing lives.
Success often starts with one great idea. Like this after-school program we visited last year. The Manzano Mesa Elementary School in Albuquerque opened the Homework Diner. Once a week, Principal Peggy Candelaria invites her students and their families to stay after school together.
One bottle has how many parts?
For tutoring and to share a home-cooked meal.
We want everybody to feel like they belong here.
She's convinced that students are more likely to succeed when their families are involved. In the 2 years since the Homework Diner opened, Manzano Mesa has jumped a full grade on the state's report card. Other principals in the district are so impressed, they are now opening homework diners at their schools.
So everything's going okay?
It's going great.
Principal Bernadette Vishawe runs La Mesa Elementary, one of the city's neediest schools, where most of the students are Hispanic or Native American.
What do you like about Homework Diner?
The homework?
Math and reading scores are 10 to 25% below the state average. To help change that, Bernadette has just opened Albuquerque's second Homework Diner.
Education is the key to your future. It will make a difference for your whole life. How much money you make, how successful you are, and if you don't have a good education, your life is going to be hard.
Once again, a school cafeteria becomes a place where families make themselves at home.
What goes on top? One, that's right.
Teachers support learning, and college culinary students make dinner, giving everyone a night off from the kitchen.
Many of my parents work at least 2 jobs, so the opportunity to have a meal together that is provided by chefs, that is such a luxury for them.
For Mayor Richard Berry, it's an investment in his city's future.
It's affordable, $111 per student per year. 100% of the students have improvement in homework, 90% improvement in attendance.
This fall, 10 Albuquerque schools will be running homework diners. A creative idea that's spreading fast. Chelsea Clinton, NBC News, Albuquerque, New Mexico.
okay. So I think that's a really cool example of the integrated student support piece. Or expanded learning time piece. And the one thing I want to say with that is a lot of people see that video and they're like, oh, I got to go do a homework diner in my community. It's important that I go replicate that. And that's not what we're talking about here. In fact, community schools is the exact opposite of replicating or the cookie cutter approach that we sometimes do in services and in education. It's really about a ground up approach, about engaging with families and asking them what they need. In this case, in the example I provided from New Mexico, these families actually came together with the school, with the community school coordinator, with administrators, with educators, community providers, all that, and actually said, we do need after school help. Like we need a place for students to be able to be and be safe. And sometimes for those parents who are fortunate enough to actually be home with their kiddos in the evening, we'd actually like to be, able to help with their homework, but we don't know how. And so that community came together to decide, well, we could, have something after school where we all came together. And what if we also incorporated dinner? And then a conversation came up, well, the local college might be interested in working on that. They reached out, the culinary students, in fact, were interested. They were able to integrate and increase what they were doing. And this story continues where they just continued to increase and increase and increase this homework dinner. It's continuous improvement. It's looking at what we have and saying, well, this is great, but how can we continue to make it better? Families, what do you need? What would make this even better for you? Would it be culturally connected? And so continuing to add to that and make it better and better and better through that continuous improvement process. So let me get back here to slides. Okay. All right, so that's the example of the homework diner. I will, these slides, of course, are available through the conference too. But again, if you like these examples you see, you want to know more about this, I'll make sure you get my contact information before the end of today. Active family and community engagements. What I just described is an example of that, right? A lot of times I think, me being a former teacher, I directly did this myself. I didn't engage families like I should have. And, I think a lot of it was the fact I was a young teacher. I didn't really understand. I was sometimes uncomfortable and maybe uninformed about how to go about that effectively, especially working in a school with, some challenging situations and challenging home circumstances. And I think that teachers often, first of all, maybe aren't trained to do that, or, some do a really great job of it, but it takes a lot of extra time. And sometimes the teachers don't have that kind of time to do that themselves. And so being able to create this really welcoming, environment for families to feel like they can come in and access services or feel like their voices are heard. It shouldn't just be up to the teacher to do family engagement. Our whole system within a school needs to be doing family engagement. And that doesn't mean just STEM nights. It doesn't just mean family teacher conferences, right? That's more like inviting parents in to watch what we're doing, right? We want to invite them in and be a part of that orchestra, and they need to be playing in that orchestra with us and helping make decisions. And I know easier said than done sometimes, but really when we can make this place a warm, welcoming environment where families feel like they can get the help they need and they can come in and access some of the services they need, or it's a place where they can come in and share their voice and not necessarily always have to be negative about it, but rather, share their voice because they have their own lived wisdom and expertise, and they are the experts in their kids, and we should be engaging with them. That is what active family and community engagement is. They're not on the sidelines, they're in the game, they're in the orchestra with us, and they're helping make these decisions. And so that may look like what I just showed to you. It may look like, involving parents in decision-making practices within the school, whether that be participating on different leadership teams. It can be doing things like providing services that are specifically for families, like English learning classes. That's been very successful in community schools. And the last thing is collaborative leadership and practices. And this really, I think, is the most important thing I want to hone in on today and really make sure we think about with community schools. Community schools sometimes end up this wraparound service thing where we just get a lot of additional services. It's a lot of additional opportunities, resources, but it's kind of noise because it's not coordinated. This collaborative leadership and practices piece means that everyone is working together to align towards common goals. As you saw in the Homework Diner example, all of those families, all those educators, all those folks were coming together within a community school to make this happen on behalf of their community. Not one entity like a school leading all of this, rather it was everyone coming together to do this. And so within a community school, you typically have site-based leadership teams that are groups of parents and maybe students, if they're old enough, teachers, principals, community partners, all coming together to think about what are our shared challenges in the community, what's our vision for our community, and how can we address these challenges so that we can achieve that vision within our community. So I want to take a moment here and dispel some community school myths. I know some of you have some knowledge about community schools. So we're going to go back into that Menti right now. Same code, same QR. It's the same one that you were using before. 5782. Well, now I got out of there, so I didn't write it down. 5782 9012. If you did close that, 5782 9012. So you're going to go to menti.com. And you're going to type in that code 5782 9012. Thanks, Delisa. And we're going to do a quick poll here. I want to learn a little bit more about what you know about community schools. And this is actually a fun little game for a moment here. So it's actually a competition for those of you in the audience that are into competition. You'll have a chance to compete here. Okay. Now what you're going to do is you're going to answer questions just the same way you did before. Whatever device you're using, the question's going to come up on that screen. You're going to answer it. You're going to see it give a countdown. So the quicker you answer that question, the more points you get as well. Let's jump right in. Here we go. Okay. Answer fast to get more points. Community schools is a program. Look at your phone and answer that question. Is that true or false? Community school is a program. 4, 3, 2, 1. Time's up. Okay. We have 7 true, 2 false. That was a tough question I asked. And the reason I ask it is because this is something I like to share about community schools. We see a lot of programs come in and out of schools. We see a lot of programs come in and out of social services. This is not a program. It's not something that we're offering. It's a way of doing the work. It is a strategy. And so I like to say community school is a strategy, not a program. Okay, let's keep going here. Next question, 2 of 5. Here we go. Look at your phones or your device. Community schools is more than wraparound services. True or false? Four, 3, 2, 1. True. Awesome. Thanks for listening. That's right. It's more than wraparound services. If we're just doing wraparound services, we're doing what we've always done. It's that collaborative leadership that really gets to the community schools and that active family and community engagement. All right, next one, I'm going to hustle along here a bit now that you guys have got the hang of it. All right, next question here. Community school strategy helps only the students experiencing needs. True or false? 4, 3, 2, 1. False. Good. Awesome. Yeah, this is really about helping all students within a school, not just the ones that experience needs. We might focus sometimes on those ones that have needs. But really, if you're doing the community school strategy right, it should be addressing or supporting all students and all families within a school. Okay. So let's see how we're doing here. Who's at the top? Looks like Matthew and Melissa. Ree. Okay, see who breaks the tie there. Next question. Question 4. Oh, sorry, guys. Hang on, there we go. Enter. All right. Community school coordinator is a food or clothing pantry manager. True or false? Community school coordinator is a food pantry manager or clothing closet manager. False. A community school coordinator, if they're doing this work right, they shouldn't be the one managing the pantry. In fact, they should be coordinating other people to help with that. It's really about coordinating the assets of the community. So coordinating those folks that maybe want to help and trying to use their expertise within the building. All right, last question here. Question 5. Okay, let's see where we're at before this final one. Ooh, looks like we had some folks pull ahead. Melissa. All right. Oh, and I think I skipped the 5th question, but that's okay. We'll call it good there. Thanks, Melissa. Thank you guys all for participating, those that did. Okay. So I know I'm starting to run short on time here. We're going to go a little bit faster through the rest of these slides. Give me just a second to get back. Okay. So what we're talking about with that collaborative leadership and that active family community engagement, I think is the most important concept behind a community schools, because what we're really talking about is using the neighborhood wisdom that exists in a community to transform the systems that we have, to make sure that the systems serve the need of the families and are responsive to the needs of families, rather than the way that we often do stuff, which is asking families to be responsive to systems and to operate within systems in the way that they're designed. So we're looking at neighborhood wisdom, wealth, not meaning money necessarily, but the wealth of the resources that exist, the expertise that exists, and will coming together those lived experiences coming together through children, through a community school, which allows those folks to connect, communicate, and collaborate. Those communities create innovative, locally driven solutions to barriers. That's cross-sector collaboration, allows for different entities and parents and schools all to come together and collaborate. This starts to inform the policies, procedures, and provisions, meaning that organizations or maybe even the school system starts to adopt policies to be more responsive to families, the procedures that we have, even the provisions, meaning that we have more efficient, equitable, and effective distribution of resources, whether that be the services that are provided or the money that's actually invested. We get more in tune to where those resources are needed. That allows for more equitable allocation of resources, leading to increased opportunities where they're needed most. What we see in personal results for families and students is that they hopefully move from beneficiaries up the scale towards partners, contributors, leaders. And that means that within a system, we see well-being, democracy, equity, and impact. So really, we're talking about helping families move from this space of beneficiary, which is often where we operate within schools and social services, families accessing things, but not always being involved in the development of the things they're accessing and not really always having a voice in that. And sometimes we keep people in that space of having to access food pantries and things like that, and not helping them to move to a place where maybe they don't have to access those services. So we're moving from this place of being transactional to being transformational, helping folks become leaders in their own community. I'm going to show one more video here, and then we're gonna hop through the end. Let me know if you can. And actually, guys, I'm sorry, I'm going to cut the video off here and I'm going to tell you a story instead because I can do this faster than the video can. I want to make sure that you guys actually get access to this video because I think it's really important, but it's another example that comes out of Albuquerque, New Mexico. And this example is of some parents who came together with a community school coordinator. So a community school coordinator was hired at a school. The administrator, the principal within the building, talked with the community school coordinator and said, what I'd like you to focus on first is finding out what families need and engaging with families. So that coordinator started having conversations with families and diving into the needs that they're experiencing. One of the primary needs that came up was childcare, was early education for their students, not only because they needed the extra support for those families who may be working and didn't have childcare for their kiddos, but because they felt like a lot of their kids weren't prepared for kindergarten. So they said, we need early education, we need preschool options. So the community school coordinator got together a team of folks, including some parents, and said, how do we make this happen? The parents, there were some parents in the room who were some moms, and they were actually stay-at-home moms. And they said, we really want preschool for our kiddos too. We actually think we have some resources to help with this. We think we ourselves could actually help teach these preschools. So those moms came together and created a preschool co-op. And those moms were actually the ones that started the teaching of the preschool and had some assistance, of course, kind of from some early education providers figuring out how to provide a really good early education experience. They were doing so at the school with some existing space and getting that preschool option for those students. Fast forward a bit, after providing those services for a while, those moms started to say, we really like this. We'd like to dive in more. And with the community school coordinators, the administrators, the community partners came together and said, we'd really like to get trained in this. We'd like to actually get some formal education in this. Well, a lot of the moms that were participating were undocumented citizens, didn't have a GED or high school education. So an entity came nearby, I think it was a local college, and said, hey, we can help you get your GED. So they started a GED program for these moms. Then the moms, after going through this program, said, oh, we just feel empowered by this experience. We'd really like to go farther. So then the community school coordinator and the community school team kind of reached out to a local college and said, hey, would you be interested in helping with this? So then these moms were actually able to access an associate's program for early childhood and get their early childhood license to be an early childhood, or to get their degree to provide early childhood services. So the education, the quality is continuing to increase. The opportunities for these moms are continuing to increase. The moms are actually helping design all of this together. So then the moms actually wanted to go farther, and they said, you know, a lot of us really like this. We want to continue to offer this in the community. We want to grow this. We'd like to open some businesses. Now they couldn't necessarily, as undocumented folks, they couldn't actually access like childcare support from the state, the money that comes in to provide some of that childcare. And so they said, well, what if we get our business license? We could actually open businesses. And so those moms started to open businesses and actually operate childcare centers. And so what we're seeing here is an example of families being brought together with the school and being asked what they needed, and then being looked at as leaders and asked for their expertise. And then over time, they continued to build their skills, build their own capacity. Now you have a group of parents who now are educated and have their own means to make a living. And then also you have simultaneously these kiddos who are getting a really high quality education. Okay, I know I'm running out of time here. I'm gonna make it. I can do this. All right. So results that we see from this, we see an incredible return on investment. Typically a dollar invested in a community school coordinator, that person who serves that coordinating role within a system actually gets a 7% a return on investment of $7 to every dollar. So pretty big return on investment. And that's just the services coming within a school. We see a decrease in chronic absenteeism, decrease in behavioral referrals, and increase in family engagement, increase in academic effort, therefore increase in grades and test scores, and better high school graduation. And we see a decrease in that achievement gap, which I like to say opportunity gap, really. We see more opportunities for those students, therefore they're more successful. There is a great study that I can share that has some of those results I just shared with you on community schools. People always ask, how you pay for this? There's a number of different ways. School district funding. Some school districts will actually appropriate funds for schools to access for this. Sometimes state funding. Sometimes the state will actually appropriate funds as well for this. Schools can pull from Title I, Title IV. Some schools pull from their general undesignated funds. There is a grant at the federal level, which a bunch of folks in Nevada actually applied for together. DeLisa is one of those. The full service community school grant, which provides money to make this happen. Some folks pull from 21st Century Learning, Promise Neighborhoods. But also the more successful community schools probably over time have braided blended funding. And that means bringing together a number of partners, maybe city, maybe county, maybe school district, maybe nonprofit like a United Way, maybe a foundation like a state foundation, coming together to all invest resources to support that community school coordinator. And it really is about that like community being able to connect in and being able to support both with funding and this extra capacity. Couple of resources for you: Community Schools Playbook. This red one, if you just type that into Google, you'll be able to find it. Building Community Schools, a guide for action, and also that return on investment study. All of these can be found at communityschools.org. That's the website of the organization I work for. What we can learn from other states, again, a lot of states have community schools now, and some states have pretty advanced systems of community schools, where not only is a school district investing, but maybe some nonprofit providers, city, county, as I mentioned, coming together to support community schools. Often we see like a system of community schools, so maybe it'll pop up as one community school, it'll grow to a whole system within the district, and then it'll start to grow even wider. And over time, we see a lot of these groups actually start to create a state coalition for community schools, which then advocates on the state level for community schools. So I'm going to stop. I'm 1 minute over, but I want to stick around for some questions if you do have them. If not, I know some of you probably need a break before your next session. That is my email address. You're welcome to reach out to me anytime. I'd love to talk more about community schools and share resources with you. But if you have questions, I'm going to stick around. Feel free to take yourself off mute and ask anything you might want to know about.
Thank you so much, Krista. I'm going to stop recording so everyone can ask questions without worrying about that part.
Thank you.